contemporary teachers to the Buddha, right? So, and we have came to the third semester. This is the final semester for the first year of your bachelor's, and your exams will be held on December for sure, right? So what I'm planning to do is, we have very few topics to cover, right? So what I'm planning to do is to finish all the lecture notes or the lectures as soon as possible, and we will discuss the questions for the exam, right? So from today onwards, I'm planning to give you questions, essay type questions. You will be obviously getting only essay type questions, right? So you will not get any short questions, rather you will get only essay type questions. So in order to get ready for that, from today onwards, I will give you essay type questions on each day, and you can answer the questions and send me the answers. And from next week onwards, I will allocate a final 15 minutes to discuss the answers for the questions which I gave you the previous week. For example, I will give you a question tonight, and next week, next Tuesday, our last 15 minutes, I will allocate to discuss the answers with you within the class, right? So thereby you will able to understand how to write the answers for the exam, right? Right. So tonight we have actually very few topics to discuss, right? So we were in the main topic of the contemporary teachers to the Buddha. We discussed about all the contemporary teachers, and if you take the Jainism is also one of the prominent religion during the 6th century BCE. Jainism had very similar characteristics to the Buddhism, right? So tonight we are going to look at the similarities and dissimilarities, or the differences in between Buddhism and Jainism, right? So almost all the facts that we are going to talk tonight is we have already gone through that, right? So what we are going to do is, we are going to jot down the similarities and dissimilarities, right? So the similarities of the Buddhism and Jainism, I went through your past papers, right? So there was a question given to discuss about the similarities in between the Buddhism and Jainism, right? So I will give you that question tonight, right? So once we finish the lesson tonight, you could answer the that past paper question, right? So this is very easy question. We could finish it quickly, as we have already gone through these details, right? So the Buddhism and Jainism, right? So the Buddhism, if we take the doctrinal teacher of the Buddhism is Gautama Buddha, and the Jainism Mahavir, right? So the Mahavir, hope you all have the lecture note which I have sent you, right? Right. So the Mahavira and Buddha were contemporaries, and there were much more common in between them. There were much more common in between Buddha and Mahavira. Due to the similarities between these two doctrines, some scholars thought that the Jainism owes its origin to Buddhism, or some believe that Jainism is the oldest branch of the Buddhism, right? So even today, I went through some Google article, and most of the people who read us usually comment on the those articles. I found that most of the people, even today, people think that Buddhism and Jainism, they identify Buddhism and Jainism as a one specific religion, right? So not only the scholars, but also most of the people, even today, they understand Buddhism and Jainism as a one specific religion due to the similarities within these two doctrines, right? So due to the similarities prevailing in these two doctrines, most of the scholars thinks that Jainism owes its origin to Buddhism, or they think that Jainism is the oldest branch of the Buddhism, right? So, but actually, these two religions are two distinct and separate religions, right? Right. So both these doctrines include doctrinal facts about intellectual, spiritual, and social forces, right? So, and the importance of, if you take the importance of these two religions, they mainly challenge the existed Brahminical order during the 6th century BCE, right? And also they were more into the non-violence, right? So that is why they treated all the people who were within the society, right? So there was a class system, right? The society was divided into several hierarchies by the Brahmins. Both of these two religions, they wanted to treat all the people of the caste equally, in a same manner, right? So that is why these two religions became more prominent and more famous among the people during the 6th century BCE, right? So both the doctrines were started by Kshatriyas, right? So both the Mahavira as well as the Siddhartha Gautama, both of them were belonged to the Kshatriya family, not to the priest family, not to the Brahmins. Rather, both of them were belonged to the Kshatriya or the princely families, right? And they always tried to give equality to the castes which were determined by the Brahmins, right? They always wanted to give the equality. They wanted to provide equality to all the classes within the society, right? So they attacked on class system, rituals and sacrifices, and supremacy of the Brahmins, right? Not only the class system, but also another prevalent fact at that time was rituals and sacrifices, right? So both the Buddha as well as the Mahavira, they talked against those in vain sacrificial rituals and the class system, and they wanted to attack the supremacy of the Brahmins, right? So the scholars say that both the doctrines, both the Buddhism as well as the Jainism were inspired by the Upanishads, by the Upanishads, right? So the not entirely, but the scholars mentioned that both the Buddhism and Jainism adopted some inspiration, some of the characters with some modifications within their traditions or doctrines, right? So both the Siddhartha Gautama and Mahavira Vardhamana lived in, they had a renunciant life. They both had renunciant life from a very similar age. If you take Gautama Buddha, he started his renunciant life from age 29, and the Vardhamana or Mahavira started his renunciant life within the age of 30, right? So, and both of them spent number of years of strict ascetic practices, right? So when we talk about in the case of Gautama Buddha followed a strict ascetic practices for 6 years, right? For 6 years, but after a while, what happened was Gautama Buddha strictly rejected the renunciant practices, and he started to follow the middle path. But when it comes to the Vardhamana or the Mahavira, he actually always advocated, he followed the strictly the ascetic practices, and he never wanted to give up on those renunciant practices. Throughout his entire life, he followed those strict asceticism or ascetic practices, right? So for the 12 years, for an entire 12 years time, he continued his ascetic practices, and not not only for that 12 years, but also afterwards also, within that 12 years period, he attained some enlightenment according to the tradition of the Jainism. And afterwards, he never wanted to stop that ascetic practices. Further, he continued to advocate those practices for the entire his lifetime, right? So but in case of Buddha, he from the age 29, for 6 years, period of 6 years, he followed strict ascetic practices, and he understood that by following strict asceticism, he could gain nothing. Then what he wanted to do is, in order to understand the truth, he started to follow the middle path. Right? So both of them attained some form of enlightenment according to their tradition. According to the Jainism, Mahavira attained some kind of enlightenment, and according to the Buddhism, Buddha attained the enlightenment, and they started to teach their doctrines to others. They became the doctrinal teachers to their traditions, right? Not only to the monastic, and also to the lay followers, right? So unlike Gautama Buddha, Vardhamana, the Mahavira, died at age 72 after a period of voluntary starvation, right? So that is why, not like unlike Buddha, Vardhamana or Mahavira always or continuously followed the strict ascetic practices throughout his lifetime, right? So the doctrinally, Buddhism and Jainism, right? So have much more in common. Both the religions, both of these religions postulate countless past rebirths, no creator to the world, karma, and liberation. Right, so both the religions talk about the past rebirths, no creator to the world, karma, and liberation. And liberation could, according to these two of these religions, the liberation is by self-effort, and self-effort of individual under the guidance of by the tradition, right? So liberation could be gained by the self-effort and under the tradition, under the guidance by their teachers, right? So both these traditions rejected the efficacy of Vedic sacrifices and emphasized on non-violence, right? So this is the one of the major reason why the Buddhism and Jainism was both these religions could attracted more crowd towards them. They rejected the efficacy of Vedic sacrifices, and also they prioritized on the non-violence, right? So if we take the concept of nirvana in two of these religions, both the religions believe the concepts of nirvana or liberations, right? So both the religions, Buddhism as well as Jainism, according to their traditions, they have a specific concept called nirvana or liberation, right? Both these religions have that fact, right? So even though they hold the concept of nirvana or the liberation, there is a difference in between the nirvana or liberation within the two doctrines, right? So if we take Buddhism, within the Buddhism, reaching enlightenment or nirvana by following Noble Eightfold Path, right? By following the Four Noble Truths and a Noble Eightfold Path, right? So when it comes to the Jainism, goal is to unshackle the soul from the attachments of karma, which results in misery due to the many rebirths and deaths, right? So thereby they want to achieve nirvana and to become perfect souls free from all attachments in an eternal blissful state. They want to make their souls perfect and free from all attachments in an eternal and blissful state. So that is how the within the tradition Jainism, they have mention the nirvana or liberation, right? So Buddhism does not believe in the existence of eternal soul, right? So according to the Jainism and Buddhism, there is a difference in between the salvation. According to the Jainism, salvation is possible only after the death, right? So according to Jainism, they believe that the salvation is possible only after the death. But when it comes to the Buddhism, according to the Buddhism, it is possible during one's own life, right? So while Jainism describes nirvana as freedom from body, and in Buddhism it describes as end of the self, breaking the cycle of birth and death by detriment from the worldly attractions and attachments, right? So that is how salvation is mentioned within the two religions, right? So Buddhism is a religion which is more practical and flexible, right? Buddhism is more practical and flexible, whereas Jainism is a religion, it is a kind of religion more rigid, right? So if we take the nature of the doctrines, Buddhism is more practical and flexible, whereas Jainism was more rigid in nature, right? So how Buddha saw the Jainism? Buddha saw the Jain theory of karma as somewhat mechanical and inflexible. Buddha understood the Jain theory as somewhat mechanical and inflexible, right? So the Buddhism sees past karma as several causes of pleasant pleasure or pain. In Jainism, in order to avoid within the Jain tradition, they always wanted to avoid the generation of new karma. They always wanted to avoid generating new karma, right? So thereby they practice self-restraint, total non-violence, and vegetarianism, right? In order to avoid generating the new karma, what the Jain tradition followers do is they practice the practices such as self-restraint, total non-violence, and being vegetarianism, right? So those are their practices in order to avoid generating the new karma, right? Right. So let's look at the ethical views of these two religions, right? So Buddhism and Jain ethics share emphasis on avoiding the killing of any living being, right? So when it comes to the ethics of these two religions, both the religions emphasize on avoiding the killing of any living being, right? They do not kill living beings according to their ethical practices, right? Jain and Buddhist monks lived by alms. Both the Jain as well as Buddhist monks lived by the alms, right? So they had a wandering life. They had to go for alms round in order to receive the alms, right? So in Buddhism, both the religions, in Buddhism, wandering life is expect in rainy seasons, right? So rain treats, right? So in Buddhism, wandering life is accepted during the rainy season, right? So Vassa, right? So they had no settled renunciant lifestyle, right? So both the Jain and Buddhist monks had a more settled renunciant lifestyle. They had their own rules within their traditions, within the Buddhism as well as within the Jain tradition. They have their own rules. Right? So Buddhism and Jainism both emphasize on constant awareness and equality, right? Equanimity, right? So both the Buddhism and Jainism, especially when we talk about the monks, they emphasize on constant awareness and equanimity, right? So both Buddhism and Jainism further apart from that, they emphasize on non-violence, right? Non-violence, we talked about this earlier also, right? So the when it comes to the Buddhism, we learned this fact as the concept of ahimsa. Non-violence was identified as ahimsa within the Buddhism, right? So Jainism advised to practice strict asceticism to attain nirvana, right? So within the tradition Jainism, they advise their followers in order to attain the liberation, they had to follow strict ascetic practices. But when it comes to the Buddhism, Buddha preached their followers to follow middle path to attain salvation or liberation. So that is one of the major difference that we could identify within these two religions. Jainism, it advise their followers to practice strict ascetic practices in order to attain the liberation, whereas in Buddhism, they advise their followers to follow middle path to attain the salvation or liberation, right? So those are the similarities and dissimilarities in a general manner. Now let's look at the exact similarities and dissimilarities. We are going to list down or jot down the similarities and dissimilarities. What you have to do is you have to just remember these similarities and dissimilarities, and once you were asked to discuss either similarities or dissimilarities in your exam, you have to describe the each and every fact, because all the questions you will get are essay questions, right? So don't try to just list down the whatever the answers that you are going to write. Rather try to explain your answer in a more detailed manner, right? So now let's look at the similarities, right? So the similarities between the two religions, right? The source of both religions are Vedic religion, and both are indebted to Upanishads, right? So both as we discussed earlier, both the Jainism as well as the Buddhism, both the religions were influenced by the Upanishads. And the second point is both the Gautama Buddha and Mahavira belong to princely families. Right, so we talked about this earlier also, right? Not to the priestly families. Both the Mahavira as well as the Gautama Buddha, they belong to the Kshatriya class, right? So both these teachers, both the Gautama as well as the Mahavira, deny the existence of God. They don't believe in existence of God. Both denied the authority of Vedas and performing sacrifices and rituals, right? So they both reject the authority of Vedas as well as the performing sacrifices and rituals, right? So they strictly rejected the sacrifices and rituals as well as the authority of Vedas. Both have accepted the theories of karma, rebirth, and moksha, right? So in both the religions, they have their own, according to their traditions, they have their own karma, rebirth, and moksha. Both taught their religions with more common language, right? So here, what I'm going to indicate is both taught their religions in a more common language, right? Not the same language. They have used common languages to teach their religions, right? So if you take the Jainism, mostly they have used the Sanskrit and Prakrit, and the Buddhism in Pali language, right? So not the same language, but common languages at that time. According within the 6th century BCE, Sanskrit was a religion of Brahmins, right? So that is why Buddha did not select the Sanskrit language to preach the Buddhism. But the common languages at that period was Sanskrit, Prakrit, and Pali, right? So thereby both the teachers, both the Mahavira as well as Gautama Buddha have used common languages to teach the doctrines, right? Both of them were opposed to animal sacrifices, right? Both the Mahavira as well as Gautama Buddha were opposed to animal sacrifices. And the another fact is that both of them admitted disciples from all the castes and from both gender groups, right? So both the teachers, right? So this is one of the major reason why the Buddhism and Jainism could attract more followers to the religion, because they never looked at the caste. Rather, all the people from the society are invited to their religions, right? No matter what, no matter what classes the people are belong to, right? From the Shudra, whatever the caste was, all the people, all the followers were admitted to their religions, right? And also from the both of the gender groups, right? So the women were ill-treated during that time. Women had no chance to get into any social gatherings, or they had no chance to go for or to embrace a religion. But when it comes to the Buddhism and Jainism, they admitted disciples from all the classes as well as from both the gender groups, right? Ahimsa or non-violence is prominent principle within the both the religions, right? Ahimsa or the non-violence is a prominent principle within the both the religions, Jainism and Buddhism. Both Jainism and Buddhism stressed on right conduct and right knowledge. Both the Jainism as well as Buddhism emphasize on right conduct and right knowledge, but not on religious and ceremonial rituals, right? So when it comes to the other religions, especially with the Brahminical order, they stress on the religious ceremonial rituals and sacrifices, right? But when it comes to the Buddhism and Jainism, these two teachers, they emphasized on the right conduct and the right knowledge, right? Both the religions later divided into, this is a kind of a similarity that we could identify. Both the religions later divided into two sects. Buddhism divided into mainly Mahayana and Hinayana, whereas Jainism was also divided into two sects called Svetambara and Digambara. Both the religions had their own three gems, right? So within the Buddhism, we have three gems or three ratna. We call them Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. And when it comes to the Jainism, within the Jain religion also, they too have three ratna or three gems. When it comes to the Jain religion, those three gems are right philosophy, right knowledge, and right character, right? And within the Buddhism, three gems are Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, right? Both these two religions had three main religious texts, right? So Buddhism has its three main religious texts, as well as Jainism has its three main texts. Buddhism, Tripitaka, right? Tripitaka, Vinaya Pitaka, Sutta Pitaka, and Abhidhamma Pitaka, whereas Jainism, Anga, Upanga, and Mulgrajita, right? So those are the three main religious texts that we could identify within the Jainism and Buddhism, right? So if we go through the similarities in a very quick manner again, the source of the both religions was the Upanishads, right? Upanishads. And both the Gautama Buddha, try to remember while we are discussing now, right? Then you don't have to study them again and again. You don't have to put much effort on that then, right? Both the Gautama Buddha as well as the Mahavira belong to the Kshatriya or the princely families, right? So both the religions deny the existence of God, right? And then both denied the authority of Vedas, performing sacrifices and rituals, right? Both have accepted the theories of, they accepted the theories of karma, rebirth, and moksha, right? So according to their traditions, right? Even though they accept these theories, according to those two traditions, their concepts are differ, right? Both the teachers taught the religions with the common language. They used a common language to teach the religions, right? Both of them were opposed to animal sacrifices, right? So they admitted disciples from all the classes as well as from both the gender groups, right? Ahimsa or non-violence was more prominent principle within the both the religions, right? Both the Buddha and Mahavira stressed on right conduct and right knowledge, not on the religious or ceremonial rituals, right? Both the religions later on divided into two sects when it comes to Buddhism, Hinayana and Mahayana, and the Jainism, Svetambara and Digambar, right? So and the next fact is that both the religions had their own three gems, right? Buddhism, Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Jainism, there are three gems were right philosophy, right knowledge, and right character, right? So both the religions had three main religious texts. Within the Buddhism, it's Tripitaka, Vinaya Pitaka, Sutta Pitaka, and Abhidhamma Pitaka, and within the Jainism, Anga, Upanga, and Mulkrajita, right? So those are the similarities within the two doctrines, right? So now let's quickly move on to the dissimilarities within the two doctrines, right? So difference regarding the conception of moksha, right? So even though the two doctrines talk about the moksha, there is when it comes to the concept, there is a difference of the concept in between Buddhism and Jainism. According to Buddhism, a man attains moksha when he ends all the desires and can attain it while living in this world, according to the Buddhism. But when it comes to the Jainism, moksha is freedom from miseries and could attain only after the death, right? Within the Buddhism, there is a difference. The first dissimilarity in between these two religions, a difference regarding the conception of moksha. Buddhism, when a person ends all the desires and could attain the moksha while living in this world. But when it comes to the Jainism, moksha is freedom from miseries and could attain only after the death. Could attain only after the death, right? Means of attainment of moksha. According to the Buddhist Sangha, to attain moksha, they avoid self-mortifications and severe penances. But in Jainism, they believe fast and severest penances, right? So how to attain moksha, the means of attainment of moksha, according to the Buddhism, they have to avoid the severe ascetic practices and they have to follow the middle path within the Buddhism. But when it comes to the Jainism, they have no concept called middle path. Rather, they believe only by practicing severe ascetic practices and penances, then they could achieve moksha, right? So it is another major difference in between these two religions, right? So, and regarding the conduct, when it comes to the conduct, Buddhism has described the conduct within the eight noble paths, and Jainism emphasized on Tri Ratna. They have talked about the conduct merely within the Tri Ratna, right philosophy, right knowledge, and right character, right? Then languages, if we take the language, within the similarities, we discussed that both the religions use very common languages, right? But when we talk about the languages, Jain texts were merely written with the Prakrit, and some Jain texts have written with the Sanskrit. But when it comes to the Buddhism was written with the Pali. Buddhism was written with Pali. Their connection with the Hinduism, right? So if it another difference is that within these two religions, their connection with the Hinduism, Jain religion is nearer to Hinduism, Jain religion is a bit nearer to the close to the Hinduism concepts of the Hinduism, whereas Buddhism followed the policy of keeping away from Hinduism. Buddhism follows a policy of keeping away from Hinduism. Caste system. Jains opposed it, but Buddhism opposed it and attacked it very strict manner. Right? Jains, when it comes to caste system, both the religions attacked and opposed the caste system, but Buddhism, Jain opposed it. But when it comes to the Buddhism, Buddha and his followers attacked and opposed the caste system in a very strict manner. Royal support and patronage. One of the great difference that we could trace within these two religions. Buddhism received strong royal patronage. Buddhism received strong royal patronage from the kings like Ashoka, Kanishka, and there are many kings who patronized the Buddhism. But when it comes to the Jainism, they did not receive strong royal support and patronage. They did not receive any strong royal patronage, right? So propagation, Buddhism spread to foreign countries, and in many foreign countries Buddhism is followed even today. But Jainism, it did not travel beyond the boundaries, right? So it did not travel beyond the boundaries, right? So those are the differences, and earlier we discussed about the similarities, right? So try to remember these similarities and differences, and whenever you get a question about to write there to discuss the similarities and dissimilarities, try to break down your answers into paragraphs, right? So for example, if we talk about the similarities, before if you were asked to for example, is it okay if I off my camera, because I have my laptop is not working, and so that I could get the question. The question is, review whether there is a resemblance between the teaching. Can you please take down that question? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Take down the question. Review whether there is a resemblance between the teachings of Buddhism and Jainism. Right? So the question is to review the resemblance between the Buddhism and Jainism, where you are asked to, that is a past paper question, right? So here you are asked to talk about the resemblance means similarities, right? So you are asked to talk about you have to review whether there are similarities between these two religions, right? So before you are going to discuss the similarities, within your first paragraph you could give an introduction to these two religions, right? So very small brief introduction, right? So the what is Jainism, who was the teacher to the Jainism, and their main concept, very in a very descriptive manner, right? And also again you could within the same paragraph, you could describe who was the teacher to the Buddhism and the main concepts of the Buddhism, right? And then you could move into the question, right? So within the question, you are asked to talk about the similarities, whether there are similar resemblance within these two religions, right? So, and what you have to do is you have to remember these similarities one by one. Not all, actually. You could describe, if you could describe about 5 to 8, that would be enough, right? But you have to write in a more detailed manner. For example, now within the first paragraph, you introduced about these two religions, what is Buddhism and what is Jainism, right? Within the question, you were asked about these two religions, right? So always, before answering the question, try to introduce what are the, if we talk about this question, what are the two religions, what is Buddhism and what is Jainism. Then only you are going to talk about the similarities, right? There are many similarities, you could say. There are many similarities or resemblance within these two religions. For example, then you could write the paragraph by paragraph. You could explain in detail about the similarities. For example, if we take the first similarity, both the Gautama Buddha and Mahavira belong to princely families, right? So you could write that, and you could further describe that as both the Gautama Buddha was belong to this kind of Kshatriya family, as well as Mahavira was also belong to a Kshatriya family. It is one of the similarity that we could identify within these two religions, right? And then further, you could say due to the fact that both of them were belong to these priestly families, most of the people flocked towards these two religions, right? So if the for example, if these two teachers belong to the Shudra families, then nobody is going to hear the doctrinal teachings from them, right? Even if they were belong to priestly families, even that nobody is going to hear them, because people at that time were fed up with the Brahmins or priests, right? So the people flocked together towards these two teachers because they were belong to the Kshatriya families, right? So likewise, you could describe the facts or similarities one by one, right? So try to describe the fact as much as possible. Then when you have a very full answer, right, full answer with all the details, then you could get the full marks, right? So what you have to do is we will write all the answers from the past papers, right? So I'm planning to finish or to discuss all the questions of the past papers within the class, right? So this question is I'm going to discuss within our next class, next Tuesday, from 8 to 8:45. I'm going to discuss our lesson, and from the remaining 15 minutes, I'm allocating to discuss the question. You all discuss the answer, right? You all have to answer the question, and I'm not going to answer the question, and I will ask from you, right? So you have to read your answers, and we are going to discuss within the class your answer, right? So that is the first question that we are going to discuss from the past papers, right? So and within the next class, that is all about the 6 contemporary teachers, right? So the final this was the final topic to the 6 contemporary teachers, where the differences and similarities in between Buddhism and Jainism. And next week, we are going to talk about the position of women during the Buddha's period. Position of the women, social identification to the women during the Buddha's. We are starting from the Vedic period, to Buddha, how it differed, right? So as we finish discussing the topic tonight, I think we could wind up now, right? So write the answer for the question which I gave you. Go through. Don't try to write the lecture note as it is. Rather, first go through the lecture note, remember the facts, and try to write the answer by your own words, right? Then you will easily remember the facts, right? Right. So let's wind up for today. If you have any questions, then email me. Right. So thank you for joining with me. Then stay
Thank you.
safe all. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank
Have a
you
good
very
night.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Good
much.
night.
Good
Good night.
night.
Good night.
Ma'am,
Yes.
we have to send that answers when we finish the writing the answer of this question.
Yeah. Send it to me first. I will go through that, and then within the class also we will discuss that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you then. Thank you very much. Have a good
Thank
night.
you very
Good
much.
night. Thank you very much.